Welcome to Laying the Points with FarleyBets. I am Chris Farley, FarleyBets on X, pro sports bettor, contest specialist. Won significant prize money in circa 2 times the last 3 years, and I will provide my insight here on a weekly basis in the NFL, including leans on every game. Now, some of these leans will be actual plays, bets I'm making and giving out to my paying subscribers, but I will not indicate that those are my real bets and plays in this show, since this show is open to all, and that wouldn't be fair to my clients. You can become a paying subscriber by visiting my Substack. Just search for FarleyBets on the platform. The direct URL is farleybets.substack.com. You can also get my daily or weekly plays at sportsmemo.com. I would only say, if you want to do a full season package, go through Substack. That gives my company 100% of the proceeds, and that keeps this engine running so that we can keep on giving you insight from a pro NFL bettor every week. So every week, every game, covering these matchups from a betting perspective. Last season, I was 107, 88, and 2. That's 54.3% against the spread, plus 22.93 units. I also want to state that this show is mainly for the common Joe or Josephine out there. The majority of pro sports bettors already have their positions in. I get that. Feel free to listen if that's you. But we all know that the betting public gets to the window later in the week. So this is for you, guys and girls, the betting public. Also, as a reminder, this podcast will be available via Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and of course, on Substack. All right, let's get to it. For your awareness, I will use Bet Online for all the following lines and totals, which may vary a little at other books. As always, people, please try to find the best number. Shop for the best number out there. It is the single most important part of winning in this thing called sports betting. Okay, Dallas Cowboys at Philadelphia Eagles, opening it up on Thursday Night Football. What do I think about this game? I'm going to try to do all these analyses very tight, okay? Not a super long show because you don't have time for that. I want to give you the most important points, the most important things that I think we should be looking at for these contests. Eagles are the way better roster, still have a very good defense, but they did lose 7 7 significant players on their defense this offseason. I think that's going to matter somewhat. We've seen this total get juiced up to the over. I would only look at the over in this game because of that. I do not think the Dallas Cowboys are going to be able to stop the Philadelphia Eagles at all in this contest. Like, without Micah Parsons, we've seen the stats about how the Dallas Cowboys defense completely changes from a really good defense to a very bad defense. Like, that's not fake news. Now, eventually, maybe this defense with Matt Eberflus getting some revenge, maybe it turns around, right? Like, maybe the Cowboys defense becomes better. Now, game 1 at Philly against the Super Bowl champs, who will not be on the field for their banner ceremony. I love that for the Eagles. Already looking ahead to 2025. Eagles probably take care of business and probably take care of business in a big way. I do think Dallas can hang around. I do think looking at Dallas's team total is interesting. I wouldn't want to bet on the Eagles at this spread necessarily, but that's the side I would lean. Kansas City Chiefs at the LA Chargers. That's in Brazil, so it's not really at anywhere for either team. Of course, the Chargers don't have much of a home field advantage anyway. Apparently, Travis Kelce got a really good ovation when he came into the Brazil airport, so maybe it's going to be pro Kansas City. This is a tight line, and it should be. The Chargers play the Chiefs very closely. It's obviously AFC West divisional opponent. Jim Harbaugh, who's entering year 2 with the Chargers, is going to care very much about this contest. So they're +3. There's value there, I think. That's the side I would lean. But I must say, the Chiefs are not going to be that team where losing the Super Bowl is going to mean they're going to have this big hangover and they're not going to be as crisp. No. If you listen to reports from local beat reporters in Kansas City, from the coaching staff, Patrick Mahomes is back to a very, not that he ever left, but he's more animalistic, like making crazier plays than ever. This could be a revenge year for Patty Mahomes. And for that, I don't like that for the Chargers in this opener. Going to be interesting. I think it's a more defensive game, so I would lean to the under 46.5. Both teams led by their defenses last season. I think the offenses have to keep up. Steelers at the Jets. Very interesting game. We know the NFL loves an Aaron Rodgers saga, do they not? So, of course, Aaron Rodgers now with the Steelers, he's going to face his former team, the Jets, who that was a failed operation for 2 seasons. And now they get to battle each other. I believe this is the lowest total of the week, and it should be. I don't know if the Jets are going to be able to do anything against this Pittsburgh Steelers defense, which on paper is probably the best in the NFL. Justin Fields, do not trust that he can lead a team or become a adequate above average passer in the NFL. He's never proved that he can do that. Completion percentage, it's always been around 61, 60, 59% for any team he's played. And he doesn't have great weapons outside of Garrett Wilson. So it's a conundrum there for the Jets offense, but not so much of a conundrum. And I think the way that it's going to play out in this game, the Steelers probably have to figure things out too. And the Jets defense is going to want to prove themselves against their ex-quarterback, and their defense is still more talented than their offense. So lean to the under, lean to Pittsburgh, though. I do think this is going to look really messy for the Jets in the first game for Aaron Glenn as their new coach. I like Aaron Glenn as a person. Don't know if he's going to amount to a great coach in the NFL. A lot of talent came to Detroit's defense, and that's kind of why they got better. That's where he was previously. Dolphins at the Colts, another 1 o'clock game on Sunday. The Dolphins start off every season very good, and we've seen the line move. The spread moved in the Dolphins' direction now recently. It's a pick 'em at Bet Online. Totals 46. Man, the thesis to this game for me is that Daniel Jones, who is the starter for the Colts, is going to have to lead their offense to a win against the Miami Dolphins, who have always started off hot. They've won all 3 week 1 games with Mike McDaniel as their coach. They still have Tyreek Hill. They still have Jalen Waddle. Devon Achane, he's been questionable all week. I know he hasn't practiced earlier in the week. Hopefully he can go, but I don't know if that matters as much. I would lean Miami here in a pick 'em. I would lean over 46 because of what Miami can do, especially in a dome or outside in warm weather. We've seen it, and we've seen it at the start of every season under Mike McDaniel. This team starts off looking good, and then throughout the season, things kind of crumble. But not going to take the Colts in this spot. Wouldn't take an under here either. Panthers and Jaguars. Panthers are 3.5-point underdogs on the road at Jacksonville. Total is 47. There's a lot of unknown in this game. I think we know more about Carolina. I don't trust that Bryce Young is going to be a great quarterback in this league. I think he is too small. I think he's a great kid, great character. And he's certainly learning to be a better quarterback. He'll probably have some great moments this season, just like he did last season. Like when you're a hard worker, good character, paying attention and learning, you'll get better. That doesn't mean that you're going to be a franchise quarterback and lead a team to a winning season. Like he's not Jaden Daniels. So I don't trust the Panthers, but I don't know if I can trust the Jaguars yet either, because this is a new operation. Liam Cohen going from Tampa Bay as their offensive coordinator to Jacksonville. There's a lot of potential there. There's a lot of hope that he turns around that offense and actually, makes Trevor Lawrence into the prospect that we all thought he would be, which really hasn't quite amounted to that yet, has he? Total is 47 here. Don't know what to do with that. Wouldn't even give you a suggestion for either side, because I think this game could be really volatile, like turnovers. It could be 17-10, but it could be 24-31. I don't. This is one of the most mysterious games to me. I really want to see how both of these teams compete. But Jacksonville does have the better roster, and they're at home. A little confused as to why the spread is up to 3.5, though. I think that's a little much. Like I'd still rather lean towards Carolina at the plus 3.5 in opening week. Giants at Commanders. I'm a Giants fan, so I'm going to tell you straight up right now that I'm not betting on this game, but I want to bet on this game. I want to. Because historically, the Giants have played Washington very closely. Just look back through any season in the past 10 years. Like, even if the Giants suck, they still play Washington really close. 6-point underdogs is a lot. In week 1 against the Washington Commanders offensive line, that is not very good. PFF rates them in the bottom third of the NFL. The Giants will have the best front seven in the NFL, right there with Denver and Pittsburgh, in my opinion. So a lot of guys that can get after the quarterback. Now, Jaden Daniels is special. And I think he can take this team to a Super Bowl, and he can do it very soon, because that's how special he is. But there's a lot of question marks about their defense still. Their front seven got better on defense, but is it quite there yet? Don't know. A lot of questions about their secondary, allowed a lot of passing yards last season. The Giants are only improved on defense. Their secondary could be sneakily a top 10 unit. Russell Wilson can at least, at quarterback, can at least control the game better than we've seen in the past, certainly better than Daniel Jones. I think Jackson Dart probably starts for the Giants sooner than later. But this is a game where you can only look at the Giants, in my opinion. Some really sharp guys. I try not to look at any opinions, but I know that there are some sharp guys in the Giants. I would join them if it wasn't my team. I don't want to approach with any bias. I want to see the product on the field first. I want to see a Russell Wilson or maybe Jackson Dart eventually does in this team. But I think the Giants can absolutely keep this one close. Bengals at the Browns. Bengals are now 5-point favorites. That was up to 7 at one point. They are now just 5-point favorites. 47.5 is the total. And it's very understandable why they're just 5-point favorites now. The Bengals have famously blew their week 1 matchup for, I believe, 3 years in a row. 3 years in a row, they've lost their first 2 games, actually, under Joe Burrow and this administration. It's not Joe Burrow's fault, and their defense is very, very bad. Like, roster-wise, on paper-wise, this is one of the worst defenses in the NFL. It's also one of the best offenses in the NFL, and Joe Burrow is a Super Bowl capable quarterback. We've seen it before, actually, in his first full season playing for Cincinnati. So this is an offense that can do it all and a defense that can't do much of anything. It's at Cleveland, and they've historically been very, very feisty against the Bengals. I remember 2 years ago, beat the Bengals straight up on Halloween as significant underdogs at home. And so I don't think you can pick Cincinnati here. You know, the Bengals are going to be feisty. They have still a solid defense, a really solid front seven, or, it's not up there with Pittsburgh and New York and Denver, but it's pretty darn good. They still got talent in their secondary. And Joe Flacco, old Joe, keeps on staying relevant in this league at 40 years old. He's back with the Browns again. He was with them 2 years ago, 3 teams in 3 years. But Flacco is going to be poised, and I think he can probably throw all over that Bengals defense. No thoughts about the total. I guess I would lean over because I think both offenses could thrive more than defenses, but the Browns keep it close. Lean +5. Raiders at Patriots. Patriots now -2.5. That was -3 at some sports books recently. I don't know what other sports books say, but I bet online it's -2.5. Juiced. Total's 44. Don't think you can bet this game. I would lean Patriots. I would lean under, but everything's brand new, right? Mike Vrabel, new coach, a huge roster overhaul for the Patriots too. Same thing for the Raiders. Like, arguably the 2 rosters that overhauled and changed more things than any other team. Raiders come in here with Pete Carroll as their new head coach again, 73-year-old Pete Carroll, Super Bowl winning coach Pete Carroll, who is probably going to bring the Raiders to better results. But is it going to happen week 1? He sounds ultra confident. I'm not so sure. Geno Smith and a very shaky offensive line. Defense is getting better, but are they there yet? Patriots, you could say the same thing. Drake May, much better talent. Stephon Diggs, I think he could fit in well there. Are they there yet? Their defense is certainly more talented too. Are they there yet? Like, a lot of questions about this game. Can't bet it, in my opinion. Cardinals at the Saints. If you're thinking contest like Survivor, this is one that I think you have to think about taking the Cardinals. I know they're on the road. In my opinion, the New Orleans Saints are going to be the worst team in the NFL this season. Spencer Rattler is not a good quarterback. We've seen it before. Look at his completion percentage. Look at just how he plays in the field, how scattered, how clumsy he looks. Just hasn't proven anything. And now you have Kellen Moore, offensive coordinator for the Cowboys, Eagles. Now he's the Saints coach. Really tough spot for a 37-year-old guy to take on a franchise when you've been an offensive play caller and like virtually no leadership experience. This is a roster of really disparate parts. Don't like either side of the ball. So not bullish on the Saints in any way. Very, very bearish on the Saints. Whereas the Cardinals show obvious improvement. Jonathan Gannon, defensive coordinator for the Eagles when they went to the Super Bowl. I trust his defensive mind. I think that defense is going to get better and better. They overperformed last season in their front seven. They added some more guys. They could be more legitimate in many ways. I believe Josh Sweat is on their team now. Someone from the Eagles. They've amped up their pass rush. I got all these names in my head at this point. But all you need to know is that the Cardinals are improved on defense. And now it's year 2 with a lot of the continuity on their offense that they had last season, and they look pretty good. I mean, there's a point in the season halfway through where you were like, oh, the Cardinals could be, the number 1 team in the NFC West. They could be contending for an NFC title. Things kind of got weird after that, but I think they show up in this game. They take care of business. I would lean Cardinals -6.5. I would lean to the under because I just don't know what the Saints are going to do in this one. Under is kind of ugly. It's a 43.5, which in terms of key numbers, if you're just someone who doesn't really bet the NFL very much, there's something called key numbers. And key numbers are where a game most often lands on, right? So for point spreads, it's 3, 6, 7, increasingly 2 as well, like 2-point margins, right? Like Eagles 32, Giants 30, something like that. Like that's a 2-point margin, right? So games end on 2, 3, 6, 7 more than any other numbers. In totals, 43 is a key number, and it's just over that 43. So I'd want to take the under 43.5 total, but I don't feel strongly about that. Bucks at Falcons. This screams a Bucks revenge game for me. Baker Mayfield and the Bucks wide receiver group is the deepest in the NFL, in my opinion. Baker Mayfield feeling himself, comfortable down there in Tampa. Offense is going to be firing on all cylinders. I believe that. They got a great new offensive lineman who's only going to add to Baker's protection. So love everything about their offense. I love Bucky Irving, explosive running back. Falcons, we'll see, right? Like, it's year 2 with Michael Penix Jr., or he only played, 3 games last season, but he looked pretty damn good in those games. They have a lot of talent on offense. I am not sure. In fact, I am very bearish on the Falcons defense. So this game could probably produce a lot of points. Want to take over 47, if anything. Want to take the Bucks, if anything, though, because the Bucks somehow lost to the Falcons twice, thanks to some Kirk Cousins magic and a lot of mistakes from the Bucks in those games last season. But do think the Bucks are the better team. Their defense got better too. Added some pass rushing guys in there like Hassan Riddick, who did a lot for Philly in the past. Maybe not so much last year, but legitimate pass rusher, disruptor, game breaker out there on defense. So lean Tampa, lean over. Titans and Broncos. This number is up to 9. Broncos 9-point favorites at home, getting inflated at this point. This was 7 a few weeks ago, 7.5 maybe. This is just a really, really, really tough spot for Cam Ward. Cam Ward, number 1 overall draft pick. Going into Denver at elevation against a Broncos defense that is predicted to be a top 3 unit once again. Really surprised a lot of people last season with how good they were. They got even better on both sides of the ball, more fortified on both fronts. Bo Nix is a great student of Sean Payton, and Sean Payton is Super Bowl winning coach and an offensive guru. There's a lot of positive signs about the Broncos. I actually don't think the Titans are going to be as bad as they were last year. They're 4-13 last season. I think Cam Ward is a mature, stoic kid, and they got some good things going for them defensively, so they can hang around in games. Like, I would lean +9 Titans in this, but I would never take it because Denver can easily run away with this game. Total, I have no thoughts. 42.5. Because of the spread being that big, it'd be really hard to take an under on this one, but it'd be really hard to take an over too, because where's the scoring coming from, right? The defenses are still better on both teams. The 49ers at the Seattle Seahawks. 49ers are 2.5-point favorites. Is this the revenge year for the 49ers after a really tumultuous, injury-prone 2024? Total is 43.5. I personally don't think that Seattle is going to be very good this season. I think they have a lot to figure out. I think Sam Darnold is an average quarterback who became great because of Kevin O'Connell and the Vikings, and Kevin O'Connell knew that, which is why they didn't keep him in Minnesota. So now he goes to another new team up in Seattle with a Mike McDonald head coach who is defensive oriented, right? He's not an offensive guy. So tough spot for Sam Darnold now. And they got Cooper Kupp, who's not in his prime anymore. Smith Najigba is the other offensive weapon at wide receiver. The offense is okay talent-wise, but their offensive line is a real issue. And San Francisco is very banged up at wide receiver. I get that coming into the season, but it's still Brock Purdy. It's still Kyle Shanahan. It's still a very buttoned up operation there in San Francisco. I would have to lean San Francisco on the spread. I would lean to the under in this one, actually, because I do think it's an NFC West battle. That's why we're seeing a lower number than expected. And the Seattle defense is certainly better than their offensive roster, in my opinion. Mike Macdonald, also a defensive coach, right? So you have things working there to suggest that they can at least limit San Francisco in this game. And that is their chance to win. Like, they can't let San Francisco get over 24 points, or else I think Seattle loses this game, even though they're at home. Lean San Fran, lean to the under. Big old game, marquee game, Lions at Packers, 425 window. Packers 2-point favorites. I believe they were the underdogs at a certain point. I never bet on this game, and I guess I shouldn't tell you what I am betting on or what I'm not, but total's 47. Because of Micah Parsons, this spread switched even more. And I do think he has a great impact for the Packers. I think he's a great addition for any defense. I think he's that big name guy that they needed to kind of attract attention to, right? Like, opposing offensive lines are going to have to stop Micah Parsons, or else you're going to have a lot of trouble with your quarterback. But the Lions are kind of quietly entering this season off of 2 straight seasons where they probably should have been in the Super Bowl and just things went awry deep in the NFC playoffs. Quiet offseason. Here they come. No more Ben Johnson as their play caller, but they have continuity. They have, like, the next guy stepped up. Same thing on their defense. Dan Campbell, still a great leader. A ton of talent on offense. Aiden Hutchinson is back on defense, and apparently he looks as freakish as ever. Lean Detroit, lean over in this one, as both offenses, I think, are better than advertised, even at this point coming into the season. Jordan Love, too, as long as he can stay healthy, I do think he's a top 10, fringe top 5 quarterback in the NFL. Houston Texans at LA Rams. This is a really tough one for me. I would lean the Rams at home. We know that Matthew Stafford is going to play. Feels good. But a lot of question marks for both teams. Like, young defense for the Rams. The Rams obviously have a lot of talent on offense. Devontae Adams is there now with them. Questionable running back room, but they started to do better at the end of last season. Matthew Stafford, still, I would say, pure throwing ability, probably still the best quarterback in the NFC. So he's going up against a Houston Texans team who also has a great quarterback, but the Texans' offensive line is a big, big problem. And this Rams front seven is getting better. They're getting to the quarterback more. You got guys like Jared Verse, who are freak athletes, who are, kind of taking over from that Aaron Donald era. Aaron Donald also kind of teaching some of these guys, right, during the offseason and in between games. The Rams defense, I think, better than we think. Stafford, best quarterback in the NFC. Probably still a better quarterback than CJ Stroud. He's going to have better protection. Lean the Rams, lean to the over. I think CJ Stroud makes some things happen because that's how good he is. But really tough game to call, because I want to see how Houston looks on the field. I should mention, too, that Houston's defense will likely be top 5. So it's not like Matthew Stafford is going to roll in this one necessarily. But I think there's just, both teams are unfamiliar with each other, right? Like interconference teams. And I think they have more to prove offensively. So there's probably just more juice on that end of the ball for week 1. Moving on to the Sunday night game. We only have 2 games left. We are flying through this really well. We have We are 23 minutes into this show. So this is great. Game of the week has to be, right? I mean, there's so many good games in week 1. Credit to the NFL for just putting out a great product of like matches. The matchups, the meetings are all very interesting in their own way. Most of them, I would say, like 12 out of 16. Very, very interesting. But Ravens and Bills, right? You can't beat that, right? Lamar Jackson versus Josh Allen. The Ravens beat the piss out of the Bills during the regular season, 35-10. But then the Ravens go up to Orchard Park in the playoffs in the divisional round last season. Ravens with multiple turnovers in the first half. Came back in the second half, but it wasn't enough. Bills end up winning that game. So a real AFC rivalry between 2 elites in the AFC conference now at this point. It's a pick 'em, which just makes perfect sense, right? Totals at 50.5. I couldn't look any other way than over on the total. It's Josh Allen. It's Lamar Jackson. It's the first week of the NFL season. There's going to be some surprises. There're going to be some, like gimmick plays to really get their offenses going and get them comfortable out there in the field. I love both defenses, but the Bills defense, especially in their secondary, is banged up. Maxwell Hairston, their their round one draft pick, is on the IR already. Tre'Davious White is banged up. Their other cornerback is banged up, Christian Benford. So Lamar Jackson is throwing against a vulnerable secondary. I like that for Baltimore. I lean Baltimore, lean to the over, but this should be as entertaining as any game in week one. And these two teams are at the very top of my power ratings. The Ravens just eking out just tiny bit better than the Bills, in my opinion, but this is at Orchard Park, which tough place to play up in Buffalo. Vikings at Bears is the final game of the week one slate. Monday Night Football, and you talk about interesting, intriguing. My goodness. Now it's the J.J. McCarthy era in Minnesota as Kevin O'Connell chooses to say goodbye to Sam Darnold. I trust my rookie, because he is still a rookie, right? Hasn't played any meaningful games in the NFL yet. J.J. McCarthy to lead my team. Vikings amped up their defense. Defense is even better than last season. They have arguably a top three. I actually don't think it's arguable. Defensive coordinator in the NFL, and Brian Flores, aggressive defensive coordinator, aggressive defense. They're going to get after Caleb Williams and the Bears in this one. But Caleb Williams has virtually a brand new offensive line with some of the best names across the NFL, like Creed Humphrey, who was for years Patrick Mahomes' blindside protector, maybe the best pass protector in the NFL. Now he's with the Bears. Bears offensive line is completely revamped. They were the worst team in the NFL last season as far as sacks taken, right? Caleb Williams is getting banged up in every game, and credit to him because he still made things happen. He still got up. He still created wins for the Bears in really tough situations. So how are the Bears going to look now with a great offensive line and new coach in Ben Johnson, who led the Detroit Lions to one extraordinary offensive season after another? Just very, very interesting, very tough game to call. I want to take the Vikings because I trust their defense more. Like the Bears defense, I think is still very mid, has to prove itself. Dennis Allen, coming from the Saints, now is up there in Chicago as their defensive coordinator, so he has something to prove, but I don't trust it yet. Trust the Minnesota defense. And if Kevin O'Connell, who's probably smarter than me as far as offense goes in the NFL, I mean, we've, as Ryan Reynolds said famously on this podcast a few weeks ago, Kevin O'Connell made Nick Mullins look good as their quarterback in Minnesota, right? So if J.J. McCarthy is worth his salt here, then he is going to look good. Minnesota has as many weapons as anyone in the NFL offensively. Jordan Addison will not play in this game, suspended the first 3 weeks, however, but still plenty of firepower. Lean Vikings, lean to the over, but I'm not taking any sides here officially. That, I guess that's just me giving up what I'm doing. I will share my full analysis in an article later this week on Substack, later this weekend, but really fascinating game to see how that one pans out. That is the full week one slate, everybody. Me talking fast, going through every single game. And let me just give you a little bit of advice here at the very end as far as your contests go. Not a fantasy guy, not going to play in any fantasy leagues. I think that ruins, or at least creates some gray areas more than I would like, some ambiguity in my spread bets when I focus too much on fantasy. So not a fantasy guide. I'll give out my takes, but like I'm not going to officially bet it myself. But I am a contest guy. Survivor, Circa Millions, right? But let's just talk about Survivor for a second. If I could turn my computer screen here, you could see I have every week, you probably can't see that, but I have what team I think could compete in Survivor, and each week that they could, like, that I might consider picking them, right? So for example, just to give away something here, like San Francisco, I think you can play San Francisco in weeks 2, 3, 7, 9, 12, and 15. They're probably one of my most valuable teams to have in Survivor this season because they have a really easy schedule. It's important for you to plan and prepare and to write out your predictions and analysis for what you can take in Survivor all season long, especially if you're in a Survivor contest, which counts Thanksgiving, right? Thursday and Friday, 4 games. Like some of those games are Chiefs, Bears, or no, it's Chiefs, Cowboys, Raven. I'm acting like I know. Eagles, Bears, Ravens, Bengals is another one, and I think it's Lions, Packers. Really tough games. So you probably have to like save a good team for that, right? Forecast and make sure that you're changing on a weekly basis. Look back at your list and write, okay, now I don't trust this team in week 5. Now I don't trust this team in week 8. Now I do trust this team a little more in week 4. You should be making those adjustments all season and looking ahead, because as much as it's about picking the winner, it's also about forecasting who's going to be in a position that they could win, including scheduling spots, right? Like if a team is coming off a game in London, and then the next week they also play on the road. I don't know if that happens, but if that does, that's a really tough spot for any team. And maybe the two teams are like kind of average power ratings, like they're on the same level. But I wouldn't want to look at that team coming off of a London game, right? So look at scheduling spots, plan out your entire season, and make modifications on a weekly basis. Because in the end, it's also about game theory, right? Sometimes you cannot pick the same teams that everyone else is picking. Like I'm sure in week 1, everyone's going to be picking Denver. I do think you have to survive at first. Like just get to week 6, and then you could be more concerned about this game theory. But throughout the year, you're going to have to take picks that are uncomfortable if you want to succeed. And that's usually what makes you last until the very end of the season, because we've seen it before. Last season, famously, a ton of favorites, like 7 to 8 to 9 point favorites, lost in the first few weeks of the season. This is the NFL. It's extremely volatile, extremely hard to predict. So you must be an outlier, especially later in the season, if you want to win in Survivor. And please forecast your Survivor picks so that you're not caught by surprise. Ladies and gentlemen, that is it. Thank you for joining me for a quick 32-minute laying the points with FarleyBets. Week 1 full analysis. Check me out at Substack. Check me out at farleybets.substack.com, at FarleyBets on X. See you next week.